Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Real Money Coach. And tonight is very important. It's entitled Closing the Racial Wealth Gap, Part 2. And our special guest is Eugene Mitchell. Eugene Mitchell is a man on a mission. And so I'm very excited because, our first time we had him on the show, everyone was like, oh my goodness, this was phenomenal. And now we've invited him back because we did not complete all of the insights, all the wisdom, all the nuggets that he wanted to share. And so I'm very excited. And I want you to understand right now in our society, there's a lot going on. I also understand that what we focus on becomes our reality. And so it's time to be part of the solution. It's time to step up. It's time to say, you know what? We can make a change. We can make things better. And this whole webinar series, this whole town hall, virtual town hall, every Thursday at 8 p.m. is really a step in the right direction. This is where we bring thought leaders, we bring individuals who are committed to making a difference. We bring important information to share. And so right now, I'd like for you to type in the chat box, where are you watching from? You can type in the chat box, are you excited? How are you feeling? Just a check-in. Also, I'd like for you to go ahead and share. Hit the share button right now because it's important that we share this information with our family, our friends, our network. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring my colleague up on the screen right now, Tony Jackson, so we can really just, get ready for our special guest, Eugene Mitchell, but also talk about where we are and what we're doing. So, Tony, how are you doing?
Man, I am doing phenomenal, Marlon. It's been a great day. It's a busy day, started out early and all that kind of stuff. But I tell you, it's really a different time right now, in our country when we think about all that has happened in 2020. 2020, we started out and we almost immediately go into this COVID situation. And then, of course, we know what's going on with the protests across the country. And so, those are things that pertain to us, and those are things that affect us, affect our community. It affects our communities of color. It affects African-American people. It affects us economically. And so that's what I'm excited about what we're doing. Like you said, we're bringing some information that we hope will be not only informative, but really relevant. Sure. And educational, actionable, and life-changing. And so that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about what we're bringing and just getting people involved. And I'm really hoping for some engagement tonight because I want to know from the people who are following the Real Money Coach, how are you feeling about what you're seeing? And, I know I have my opinions of it, Marlon, and really, it all boils down to economics. And what we're going to talk about tonight is, closing the racial wealth gap, part 2. And a lot of that Eugene dealt with in his book. And I'm really excited about hearing him tonight, getting some of his insights. Yeah. And I just really want to hear from our people. Let us know what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And let's talk about it.
Sure. And, I think, Tony, I watched the memorial, live. They streamed it live and I watched it today on YouTube. And, one of the things that I think is very important is we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to change some things, to make things better. And I think, as I was listening to, Brother Sharpton, give the eulogy, it just really struck me that, we really are at a turning point right now. And, I think you're right, definitely financial, wealth, money, it plays its role. And we're going to get into that. We're going to unpack that. And also I want each one of us to understand that we have a responsibility. Each one of us has a responsibility to make this world a better place. Remember, what was that? We Are the World. You remember? Right? Yeah. I mean, I might be dating myself now, right?
Yeah, but, just a little bit, Marlon. Just a little bit.
Yeah. But Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, right? Or Mariah Carey's Hero. those type of, songs, music, it just really inspires you to realize, yes, your voice counts, and your vote counts. And it's important that we be active, not sit as spectators, but really be engaged. That's why I'm excited about Eugene being on, because, here's a man that said, I see an issue, I see a need, and he launched, that $1 billion, right, movement, right?
Yep.
And
$50 billion. $50 billion. 50 billion.
With a B, y'all. All right. All right. 50 billion. Okay. And so it's so great to have everyone on, and Dr. Benita Harris and Brother Day and Raymond. Glad you're here. But again, I want to encourage all of you to go ahead and hit that share button, because we want as many people to hear this message tonight. It's so relevant. I mean, right now this is history right here, right now. Right. And so, yeah, Tony, how are you feeling, man?
And here's the thing, man. And I've said this, and I think when we look at COVID-19, what it did is really put a magnifying glass on what we knew were already problems that were out there, right?
Sure.
So, having not having appropriate health care and our communities, and we talk about the high blood pressure, the diabetes, and all those things. Not that didn't just happen overnight, right? That happened. That was already there. But what COVID did, it put a magnifying glass on it, and so it magnified it. So it's right in our face.
Right
now, when we look at Mr. Floyd's death, and it's the same thing. Some of the things that we're dealing with in terms of racism, systematic racism, and police brutality, and some of the things that these things are not new. It's just now everybody's walking around with a camera in there. I mean, everybody's walking around with a camera.
Right.
Sure. Caught on tape.
Yeah.
And so again, it's just bringing some things that are that have been there to the forefront.
Sure.
And so that's the thing about it, is that we realize that it's not anything new. Mm-hmm. But the question becomes, what are we going to do about it? What role are you going to play? I believe this. I believe the protesters have a place to play. There's a role to play. Mm-hmm. There's a role to play for our elected officials. There's a role to play for the PACs, the political action committee, the money. And one of the things, we were kind of watching this weekend was the movie 7 a.m. And, I think it might be, fun for us to even show some of that on this show sometime. But Dr. Claude Anderson says, for politicians, you either got to buy them, rent them, or lease them.
Wow.
Because it all boils down to economics. If we're not paying attention to economics, then we're really kind of fooling ourselves to think that, it's all kumbaya.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. I mean, this is real talk. And, I think, for our viewers, would love to check in with you as well. What are you feeling as far as what are the solutions with what's going on? What do you see? That's what we're going to be really unpacking tonight. But I would love for you to go ahead and post. I know we got people all over the United States involved, and it's really exciting. People calling me right now. Right?
How do I get on, Marlon? How do I get on the show?
Right. So just type in the chat box. What do you find to be some of the solutions? Because that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, right? I mean, Brother Mitchell, Eugene Mitchell's coming back to really go deeper. And really unpacking, those strategies. And what a phenomenal time to have him here with all that's going on, like you said.
Right. And as he and I were talking earlier, we were talking about the book, man, and we go back, and as he talks about the 7 untold rules of Black prosperity and legacy, and it's so timely, because some of the things that he was writing about are very applicable to what's going on right now. And that's, to me, a good sign of a good writing is when it transcends the time it was written to even a current situation.
Right.
And so that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about unpacking that. And tonight is and as it relates to today. And so it's going to be phenomenal. And we had so many great comments about when he was here before. And so, I think the next day I was like, man, you got to come back. And we put this date on the calendar. We circled June 4th on the calendar. And what's amazing is the number of things that have happened since he was here last time to what's going on today. And it's only been really a few weeks, but it seems like there's years worth of things that have happened in that short time frame. And so it's going to be very exciting to see him and hear from him tonight.
Yes. Well, let's bring him out let's do this thing. And I love it. People are just like, wow, they're ready, Tony. They're ready. And so get your notepad, get your pen, because again, it's not about just receiving information. It's about taking the information and taking action. I mean, That's really the key, action. So let's go ahead and get focused and let's have a great show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And because we ran out of time, we wanted to be very conscious about getting him on earlier this time so that we can start at rule number 1 as a refresher.
Yes.
And then let's just move through it. So I think we ought to bring the man on. I think we ought to bring on Eugene and let him share what. There he is. There he is. Man,
right.
Look at that smile on that face, man. This has a smile, right? And so we're so excited about having you, Eugene. So thank you again for coming back and sharing with us. And man, I tell you, let me say this, man. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate, just being able to talk to you. And of course, we've talked a few times since you were on the show and before that. And so I appreciate that, man. I appreciate what you stand for. So we're just ready, man. We're ready. It's like a pot about to boil over, right? And that's what I think we're seeing a lot in our streets and in these protests. And of course, we know this. I just want to say this, just for the record, is that we understand what we see on the news is what they want to show us.
That's right.
We're not seeing the thousands of people who are protesting peacefully, causing no harm, not doing anything. But what we do see is we see that that 50, 100 people that, when everybody else is gone, that's what they're showing us on the news. So we understand that, and we understand that news is about selling news. And it doesn't sell news to sit there with your hands crossed and peacefully chanting or holding up a sign. That doesn't sell the news. What sells news is the looting, and what sells news is the violence and the disruption and the disobedience. So I just had to say that. I don't know why. I just had to get that out because I want people to understand that that it's not all like that.
Sure. And what also, I think, the fact that there's been so many protests in other countries as well. Right. So this is an international spotlight, like you say, Tony, a magnifying glass on the issue. And that's why I'm really glad, because, Brother Eugene is going to share some information that we can apply, for our family and our community. Right. And when I say community, I'm talking about all of us. We're all part of the human family. And it's time to take it to the next level. This ain't a black, white. It's not Christian, Jew, male, female. We're part of the human family. And I think, at our core, we've just been conditioned and some people have rhetoric where they're putting out their agenda. So again, and like you said, the news, they're going to focus on what they want to focus on. But again, I go back to, what am I doing? What are you doing? And what are our viewers doing? I think that's where the power is. We can just, take this power and say, we can make a difference. So I'm excited. Let's talk, Eugene. How are you?
The floor is yours, my man.
No, thank you again, fellas. Really, it's an honor and a pleasure to be back. And it does feel like the world has changed significantly since just the past couple of weeks when we were on. And, my heart's been heavy. And as I'm sure, like everybody is, going through the emotions this past week, and just seeing that we're under, from the health, that you can think of 3 areas of crisis, right? From the health crisis, from the economic crisis, and then the social justice and the social impact crisis that we have going on. And I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't lead off saying that those who've passed away are and struggling, and those families left behind are in our thoughts and prayers. We're looking at that 100,000 number of the COVID deaths, and I found a website, the COVID tracker, that shared that 20,000, almost 21,000, according to their predictions, are African Americans that have passed away. And just to think about the emotional impact, the grief and tragedy that's there, and I know we're going to talk about the economic impact. How many of those were set back instead of being set up in these circumstances? And that's what we have to do to make sure, because we know crises are going to come. In our lifetime, how many have we seen from economic downturns, from the pandemics and the likes? There are going to be crises that come, but will we be prepared for when those come? And so, I'm excited to be back with you. And I agree that the spotlight is on it, and I'm hoping that this can be a turning point and a tipping point, for real change, systemic change. I'm loving, like I said, the protests overseas, the diversity of the protests and the marches, and of course, I would believe 95% are peaceful and on the right track. But that's depending which news channel you watch, they're showcasing the worst of the worst to deflect and to distract from the real issue at the core here.
Right.
To be expected, right? That folks still don't want to take it on. But I think that there's a lot more people to see the corporate responses, the corporate contributions. Did you see? I think United Healthcare gave $10 million to George Floyd's family, his children, for their college fund. They've given to community change. I mean, just there's some great, I think, unprecedented type moves of companies now, and organizations making moves and statements being put out beyond just the we're with you, as much as I'm willing to put my pocketbook, our corporate dollars, our reputation, our brand behind not only all employees, but specifically today the Black employees and the Black community that's hurting. So I'm inspired, and I really hope that we can put a plan in place. I know we're going to talk about some of the things that we can do for ourselves, for our families, and for as a community, to make sure that we can harness this time and really be as impactful as possible.
Yeah, Eugene, that's awesome. And and you said a whole mouthful there, and you talked everything about, from the diversity of the protest to, and I would say even the necessity of the protests.
Yeah.
That we have. And again, the three things that I took away from what you just said is that there's obviously there's a health crisis, there's an economic crisis, and there's a social justice crisis. Yeah. And when we see corporations that are willing to come in and put their dollars, because here's the thing, words are cheap. You can say I care, you can say that it makes a difference, but when you're willing to put your money behind it, that's when we know that you really care. When you're willing to put some dollars there. And given, I know that, they should have been doing that. Yeah, that's fine. But you said a tipping point. And I believe that we could really be at that tipping point. But when you're at a tipping point, you can either go on one side or you can go back. And my concern is that we don't get to a tipping point and tip back right into the same things that we're talking about. We were here, 4 years ago is when Kaepernick started doing the kneeling. And how many lives have been lost at the hands of police brutality from 4 years ago till today? I don't know the number to that, but even if one would have made a difference. And so it's great to see even the current Heisman Trophy winner come out and condemn this outwardly. And I'm hoping and praying that more athletes or more entertainers, people who have influence, will come out and say enough is enough, and because their voices matter, and because they have dollars behind their voice that they can put to it. So I'm ready to get into it, man. I'm ready to get into it. And you know what we're gonna do, man. Rule number one in your book.
Yes.
Rule number one is to know yourself and to know your worth.
Yes.
So in light of what you see going on, unpack that a little bit for us today.
Yeah. See, this gets really deep, and to your point, you know, when I wrote this, it was in my mind of what we need to know, what we need to consider as a for our families and as a community. But to apply it today, I think takes it to a whole new level. You know, we're fighting for social justice, the treatment of the police, and we're saying we're not valued as Black lives. Right. And we're saying that Black lives matter. And as much as I wholeheartedly agree with every part of that, where I was going with chapter 1 and where I believe we have to start to move this conversation for ourselves and for those outside of our community is to understand, you know, Black lives matter, but what is a Black life worth to ourselves, to our family, and to our communities? Because then you can really start to take on the significance of the absence of that life, right? So I think that we've been conditioned, and you think about, we talk about this white superiority and Black inferiority. You talk about sort of what we've seen is the imagery of Black men, being shot and going to jail, and I think we've become numb for so long. It's not associating value to those people that are being taken away, and I think that's a misstep and a misfortune that we need to reframe and correct, right? Then in saying that we are valuable, and that every Black person that doesn't make it home is a significant impact to us. Right. So when George Floyd didn't make it home, right, not only the emotional toil, the angst on his family, his daughters and his families and the likes, but what is the economic impact that he's not bringing home his wage to his family going forward? Right. And who's going to supplement that? Who's going to make that up? And I think that's where I was going in this first chapter. Know yourself, know your worth, because I'll give you the example of where this light bulb really went on for me. So just to recap a bit of my background, I spent 4 years as a prison guard down in Miami. I knew that wasn't the path, and I leveraged it as a stepping stone to finish my undergrad in finance, and then I applied to NYU Stern School of Business, and I went there to get my MBA. Moving into corporate America after I graduated, I ended up at New York Life Insurance Company, one of the largest financial services companies in the world, really, and got hired into a leadership development program, and just thought I was on the track, moving up, doing everything that I was supposed to do, on par with everybody that I went to school with, in the way of salary and sort of the ways and means that I was accumulating assets here and there. But 2 years after 2 years into my job, I completed this leadership development program, and I got a letter into inter-office mail that threw me for a total loop. Right? It said that they wanted to take out. They said, "Congratulations on your promotion now to an assistant vice president. As a new appointed officer of the company, we want to take out a $2.5 million life insurance policy on your life to benefit the retirement fund at New York Life."
Wait a minute. Hold up. And a lot of people don't realize that happens in corporate America.
Correct.
Corporate America will take executives and they will put a life insurance policy on them, key person insurance,
that's right,
those type of things, because they're saying, hey, listen, Eugene, you are valuable to this company.
Say it again. You're valuable to us and our company.
Right.
For what you do, for what you bring, for what you produce. Absolutely. Keep going, brother.
Yeah. So you're valuable to this company for what you produce, what you bring in the door. And if you are not here, we're going to be at a financial loss because you're not here anymore. Now, if the company is valuing that way, what more value are you to your family?
Okay. So you're getting beyond me here.
Come on now, come on.
Hold on. I know you know the story here, but this is exactly it, brother. So I asked the folks, well, what is this? And they said, well, it's called corporate-owned life insurance. To your point, it's like you're a key person here, and this is ways that we can protect ourselves in case anything happens to you. I said, well, I get that concept, but something that's baffling me even more. Where does this $2.5 million number come from? To which they said, well, that's what they value you at. I said, I don't get it. They said, well, that's what you're worth for the work that you do here. I said, I don't get it. So they said, well, okay, there's different ways to calculate your value and your worth for what you do here. And the easiest way to do it is to do a current value of your future earnings, right? They said, here you are, 30 years old, making $100,000 a year. We expect you to work here at least another 25 years to you, 55 to 55 at least before you retire. What is $100,000 a year for 25 years? $2.5 million. See, they weren't just looking for what I bring now, but for the long term. What's the value long term that I bring in to the company? 2.5 million, and that's just the base salary. They didn't talk about raises. They didn't talk about bonuses. They didn't talk about anything in the deferred compensation. They just said for the work that you're doing, the base salary, we're going to value you at $2.5 million. And I said, this is the first time I've ever heard it. And they said, well, what do you mean this is the first time you've ever heard it? They said, well, don't you have a $2.5 million policy on yourself? To which I said, no. And they said, well, why not? To your point there, Tony, they said, well, if you don't make it home tomorrow, do you realize that that's $2.5 million that your family won't receive over the next 25 years? And what will they have to do to make up that shortfall? Right? Will your wife and the children be put out of the house? Will she have to find somebody else to take care of her? Will your dreams and hopes and aspirations for the children to go to college and beyond all be set back because you don't make it home? And honestly, I had never thought about it. And really, as I did start to think about it, I became extra sad because I realized the company valued me more than I valued myself. And that's what I realize and believe, that we have to start to reframe and reprogram our community because we don't see our own value, right? That like the company saw me more valuable than I saw myself. And let me tell you, it took me a lot of years to buy $2.5 million of insurance on myself because as a Black man in America, nothing has ever told me that I'm worth that much before. I didn't believe it. And it took me a long time to build up that confidence and to build up that passion and confidence and investment in myself to say that I'm worth that much, right? And so the next part, as I started to think about this, was once I started to value myself, then aren't I going to start taking care of myself better? And so then when you think about, how I put it out there to you guys this way. Just because this is all part of, I think chapter 1 is so important for what we're going through, and I think in order to get other people to see us, we have to value ourselves. We got to take care of ourselves, and we got to take care of each other, right? So if anybody makes $50,000 a year for 20 years, that's $1 million. That means we're all $1 million assets in the Black community. And if we were to look at each other and value each other and appreciate each other as $1 million asset, would we start to think on a whole nother level, right? Another thought I had on this, and I go deeper again in the book, is to say, if we had anything else worth $1 million, what's the first thing that we would do? So say we had $1 million car, what would we do? First thing you would do, you would insure it, right? And then you'd park it, when you go to the mall, way out in the middle of nowhere, so nobody can touch it, right? When you come home, you've got the garage, you've got the alarm, you've got the floodlights, making sure nobody can touch it, right? What if you had $1 million home? Same thing. Wouldn't you have the burglar alarm? You'd have the lights. You might live in one of those communities with a guard at the front to make sure your cousins can't come by without being announced, right? But what if you had $1 million racehorse, right? Think about it. If you had $1 million racehorse that you knew you could get put out there and make money for yourself, let me ask you, would you have it staying up late, smoking and drinking? Would you have it not eating? Would you eating fried food, or not going to the doctor, right? Not exercising. You take care of all those things, $1 million assets, more than we take care of ourselves. And that's what I want, and in this first part, know your value, know yourself, know your worth, because we have to take a better care of ourselves. We talk about these underlying issues, the underlying conditions. We know we're not eating the best that we could and should be, exercising like we should be, not going to the doctor like we could and should be. So yes, there is systemic racism in our community and in our healthcare, in the way of access, in the way of insurance, in the way of the bias and being treated and all that. Yes. And we're going to take on a plan, and I hope that's what we come out of this is framing those in the health system that can help frame out what we need to change, to the systemic change there. But I also believe that part of this is as us and ourselves, our own mindset and our own health awareness to take care of ourselves, right? So that's why I wanted to lead off there and make sure that we.
You could park there, right there, man. You've said a mouthful, and really, man, what you've just unpacked is so important, and we don't realize it because we have been conditioned to believe. Going back to the old debit agent, the $500 policy, we've been conditioned to believe that life insurance is nothing more than covering the funeral costs. Right. Not understanding that you're protecting your future, which is your rule number 2, is insuring yourself, insuring your future. But also it's a wealth building tool, a wealth transferring tool.
Yes.
And, and I always joke around and said, man, when I lost half my friends when they found out I sell life insurance, right? I lost half my friends. And then I lost the other half when I became a preacher. And then I created some enemies when I became a pastor. But understanding that it's an important tool, and we don't look at it as a tool. We look at it as an expense, and it's really an investment, and it's an asset into ourselves. So, man, thank you so much for sharing that. And what I love about it is I love your passion. Marlon, I don't know if you wanted to add anything before we ask him to move to rule number 2. It looked like you had something on the tip of your lip.
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, listen. I mean, your identity is everything. And Eugene, you really just broke it down, man. I mean, so many people are like, oh my goodness, never thought of it from that perspective. But you see, the thing is, when you love you, when you know who you are, you walk different. You talk different, right? And I think that's what you've reminded us, because, we always, Tony and I, we talk about, people are borrowing money that they don't have to buy things they don't need to impress people who really don't care, right? I mean, think about it, man. When you know who you are, it's like, if I come in cut off jeans or sandals or, or alligator shoes, I'm still, I got value regardless of what I'm wearing.
I was waiting to jump in on that. See, you got me going now. This is what we've been misguided to believe, that our value and our worth is tied up with what I wear, what I drive, how I look, the purse that I carry, the shoes that I wear. And all of that is not about us. That's all giving our money and our value and our worth away to somebody else.
Right.
What happens next season? A whole new batch comes up, and what you have is old. So now, have you lost value because everything that you have has lost value? These are depreciating assets that we're associating our value and our worth to, that I think is a great and grand design, right? By those products and services companies to separate us from our money, while we're thinking that this means something, that there's something of value to us, but really those are symbols of wealth. That those aren't real wealth building tools.
Yeah.
What we need to think about and get back to, and we talked about it, Tony, just before we started here, understanding our value and our worth as a producer, right? As a contributor, as a builder, and as a leader for our family and our community. That's value. That's what makes us valuable. You see, we talked about, if you remember, we talked about this when 400 years here in America, When we were brought over as slaves, it wasn't that you didn't have value. They understood your value, but not for what you wore, not for what you drove. It was about what you could produce, what you could deliver. That's where our value is. This is where we shine. This is where we are unlike anybody else. For all that we do and all the greatness that we have, that's what we have to reclaim for ourselves. And I think once we do that for ourselves and understand the value of our lives, then we can insist that other people value our lives as well, more so than just saying it, right? Our lives matter. Yeah, okay, but I don't get it until you clearly articulate what that means, the value of my life, what I bring to this world, above and beyond even what I earn, the impact I'm going to have in this world because I pass this way. That's my value. And that's what you robbed from those families in shooting this man, or choking this man on the street, or shooting Aubrey down in Georgia. That's what you took away, right? It wasn't just another person. It was somebody with so much to give, so much value that is now missing.
Yes.
Wow.
Man.
Yeah. Understanding your value, that is so huge, Tiffany. But understanding your value, man, that is so huge, is to understand that. And if we don't value ourselves, right, you can't ask someone else to value you if you don't value yourself.
Correct.
And if you want to know what someone's valuing, look at their calendar and look at their checkbook.
That's right.
That'll tell you what they value.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Calendar and checkbook. And the other thing, for Eugene, check this out. I have this thing called, if I have an apple in this hand, I squeeze the apple, what type of juice do I get? Apple juice. Right. If I have an orange in this hand and you peel the orange, squeeze it over another glass, what type of juice? Orange juice, right? So here's the question. It doesn't matter if you're an apple or an orange. You can't give what you don't have, right? So the first step to leadership, the first step to love, the first step to potential is self-love, self-potential, self-leadership, right? You got to work within. It's an inner game. Am I right? So I think number one, brother, step number one.
And there's so many levels, and I go even deeper in a couple more in the book. It's just, when I think about, the outrage that we have with, the cops taking our lives, or being, racist, individuals taking, but we got to call it out that we take each other's lives.
Right.
And don't think twice about it.
Come on.
And is it that I don't value you as $1 million asset? If I don't value myself as $1 million, I definitely don't value you.
That's right.
And so that start to put us on. I think that's part when you think about the progression from slavery, how we were moved into the slums, into the ghettos. That we're a broken people. We were never put back together. Right? What was the impact of slavery? They took education from us. They took our religion. They broke up the family, and they made sure we had no finance, right? Where was and all, of course, it was all the trauma and the abuse that went on there to really mess you up. We were never put back together, right? And I believe nobody's ever come to tell us how valuable we are, so we don't appreciate each other.
Yeah.
No, George, our good friend Dr. George Frazier says nobody's coming to save us but us.
Come on, Eugene.
This is why I want to spend so much time here, because this is how we have to strengthen each other, right?
Yes.
When we talk about sort of coming together we know no bounds. But until I see you and appreciate the brothers here on the screen as valuable, as $1 million assets to the family, to the community, to me, I'm inspired by you. That's when we can get more done. That's when we can demand that from others.
Right.
So and this the thing just struck me as you were talking.
Yes.
Is not only are you valuable, Eugene, to your family, Marlon, to your family, but what about the value you are to our community?
Yes.
And that's what I love about the $50 million project you did. It wasn't about individual families as much as it was about collectively what we can do and what we value. And so, man, I as I'm moderating this conversation, I gotta go to some of the other points. I got some of my favorite points in the book. I'm looking at rule number 3, right? And it says you can't earn your way to wealth.
Yep.
You talk about the wealth pyramid.
Man. want to, if I can, just I know we skipped number 2, just for a brief second, because you touched on the $50 million empowerment plan, and the where this came from. This was a vision that I had back in 2011, which turned into a mission, and then the movement for the 1,500 Black financial advisors I led at New York Life Insurance Company. And so I put out there a goal for us. I said, what if we could get out of the 43 million Black folks out there, just 200,000 to see the value of owning at least $250,000 of life insurance? Remember, I said the company wanted to take out $2.5 million on me, but I said, you know what? In order to start to close the wealth gap for families, what if we just took out a mere $250,000 on 200,000 people? And if you multiply that out, 200,000 people with $250,000 of life insurance will equal $50 billion of tax-free future income at some point in the future, because it's guaranteed we're all going to pass away at some point, right? But this is about planning for it and making sure that we set up those who will be left behind, right? What is it? The Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So we know it's coming. How are we preparing for this? And so this is what this was about. And when you think about, not only, like you said, not only for the individual family getting 250,000, but when 200,000 people get that over time, that's going to be $50 billion, right? Why I bring this up is because I'm hurt to think about over these last 2 months. I mentioned it earlier. They said 20,000 African Americans have passed away, right? And to think about if 20,000 had $250,000 of life insurance, like this campaign put out there, that would have been $5 billion paid out over these last 2 months to those families to impact our community. And when you think about creating change is all, and the systemic change, the fighting the system, you need resources. You said it early. It's about the economics in order to do this. And could we start to do that with $5 billion? This is a way to not only think about value, but to figure out how to now leverage tools around that value to make a difference. So I just wanted to not skip over that, because I think, when you think about 5 billion or 50 billion being delivered back into families, and we can cycle that back with Black businesses. We could deposit that into Black banks, right? We can pay for college educations. We can really make an impact, community impact, as well as, set up the families. This is what we need to start thinking about. And I think that's the value of chapter 2. That's insure yourself to ensure the future. Insure yourself to ensure the future. Wow. But I just want to drop that. Away over these past few weeks, we could have been on a very different place in our community and our agenda had we sort of prepared ourselves accordingly for a crisis like this.
Well, I want to say something real quick, because we have had people write in and said, "Hey man, all you guys do is talk about money on the show." Well, let me remind you, you're watching The Real Money Coach. That's what we talk about. Yeah. And for those of you who don't understand and say, well, this is callous, you're not really talking about the lives, but what we're talking about is something that you're not going to get anywhere else. You are not going to get anywhere else. And what I believe is what we're talking, it is hard but fair. It's hard but fair. And even I think about Jesus, even, from a religious standpoint, on the cross, and he said, "Behold thy mother," as he spoke to John. He wanted to make sure that his mother was taken care of when he left his earthly life. When he left his life on earth, it was not an earthly life, but when he left earth, he wanted to make sure that she was taken care of. And so we have to be real about this. We've been sweeping these issues under the rug far too long. And that's why there is this gap, is because there's other communities that are so far ahead of us. And that's what we're talking about, is closing the gap. So I just wanted to throw that out. Somebody may not be happy about it, but there it is.
So let me, I loved everything that you said there. So it is about the lives. We are valuing the lives. We are appreciating every individual that's been lost, right? But I'm just thinking, is there some way we can start to triumph in some semblance of triumph in that tragedy, right? And to know that families will be set up because we've prepared a plan to make sure that if anything happens to me, they will be taken care of. That's, I believe, a start in the way of a triumph in the tragedy, especially on a mass scale like we've had in these past few months. The other part I think that I just wanted to pick up on what you started saying there is that other communities do this. This is what they've been doing. The company I worked for has been around 175 years. That's what they've been doing for the last 8 generations. They set up families for generations to come to in the way that making sure that they can use leverage tools like this, and in ways that we are still wondering, why are we talking about wealth and why are we talking about money? Why are we because we're trying to learn best practices of what the other folks are doing and why we see them ahead and why we see them always seeming to have a hand up or a leg up over us, because they've purposely positioned their finances and their products and strategies and tools to do that. So I just wanted to touch on those 2 parts there, Tony.
That's awesome. That's good. So now let's talk about this. You can't earn your way to wealth.
Sure.
Why that title, Eugene? Just kind of share with us a little bit about that. Unpack that for us.
Sure. So if you remember in the intro of the book, we talk about the difference of earnings and wealth, right? The income and wealth. So what you earn in your paycheck day to day, week to week, that's your income, right? That's where I was going with this title here. You can't earn your way to wealth. Wealth is an appreciating asset. It's something that you can leverage, something that appreciates over time, something that you can borrow from or sell when you need it. So in the case of an emergency, you can tap the asset to take on, or if there's an opportunity, you can tap the asset to get more and build more. And that's really what. So when you minus your income from your debts, that's when you get your net income or your that's basically your wealth, your pool to build from or to invest into. So where I'm going and where I try to go in this is to understand that you have to do more with your money than just earn it, right? And or spend it, consume it. We keep talking about 43 million people with $1.2 trillion of earned income, but what are you doing to invest it, to make it, multiply it, to make it more? And this is where this chapter goes. And I give 4 paramount wealth building practices, right? And the first thing that I talk about is protecting what you have. What you earn, what you own, those you love, is about protection. And then moving. So this is all beyond your income now. What are you doing with it? First thing is to protect what you have. That's the foundational building block there. I put it into a pyramid, and these are sort of the base of the pyramid, protection. And the next one would be planning. So in the way of planning, what are you doing with the income? You have to buy something. It's a home, it's an investment, put in your 401k, it's starting a business. Ideally things that have tax advantages, right? And appreciate and that you can borrow from in tough times. That's the planning. And so that chapter gets into that. Then it talks about preserving what you have and what you've built, right? So the idea that I also talk about our life expectancy, and I don't believe that we frame it out in our community to say, you've got 80 years to live, 86 years or whatever the number is now. What are you going to do in that time frame? So if the first 18 years you're going to school, maybe 4 if you go to college or you learn a trade, then you're going to work for 40 years, right? So there's 60. What are you going to do for that next 20 years? And putting 3% into your 401k probably is not going to be enough to sustain you those next 20 years. And so that's where I talk about preserving. That next part of the pyramid is about preserving what you make and what you have. And then the last part is passing along what your wealth is. And so, be it to your own family, to charitable organizations, all the things that you could do to make a difference with what you have in your life, to also make an impact. So that's where I was going with it. You can't earn your way to wealth. Well, wealth is something that you have to put your money into to build and to make a difference.
I love it, man. I love protect, plan, and preserve. I actually have a earmark. I got the earmark right here for that page because I think that was so very powerful.
Yes,
talking about protect, plan, preserve, and pass along. And that's That's great. Now, man, and I can't believe it's almost 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Hey, Eugene, I might have to put you on the spot, man. We might have to have you back next.
Again? All right.
Check your calendar, man. We might
All
have to have you back next week to finish
You
this
got
out, okay? But rule number 4 is you can't, if you own if you have a landlord and a Lexus, you have a problem.
Yes.
You got the shiny Lexus out there, brand new, shining, luxury vehicle, but you got a landlord. What are you talking about?
Making a rent payment. So the idea here, and I didn't want to offend some. Well, I guess I did kind of want to offend some folks here. You're trying to shake them up a bit to say that, you know what, that if we're talking about creating wealth, this book was about closing the racial wealth gap, creating wealth, right? So if you're happy with the lifestyle that you have, but if you're talking about I want to create wealth and empowerment for myself and my family, then that's not an equation that adds up here, right? Mm-hmm. Because as we talked about, your Lexus depreciates as soon as you drive it off the lot, right? So what you spent for it is worth less already.
Right.
Next year, the year after, it's worth less. Versus your property always appreciates. So why is it that I'm renting and paying somebody else's mortgage for what they own in the way of a home that appreciates in value, that I get a tax deduction on every year when I file my taxes, that is something that I can pass on to my children because it's a solid asset that's always going to be there? Wouldn't it make sense if I'm creating wealth to put money into that versus the car, right? And you think about what we are okay to spend sometimes in the way of a car payment, $600, $700, $800 a month for a car payment, right? And to think about what we could have done with that. We talk about opportunity costs. Had I put it into like a car, right? But just so that's where this was going, to get us to think deeper about so there's this balance of I think Jay-Z might have said it at one point. He said there's a difference between the ability to purchase an item and to be and being able to afford it. Hold it. Right. There's a difference between the ability to purchase something and the being able to afford it. Just because I can buy a $2,000 purse, right? Does that mean that I can afford it? If I got a $2,000 purse with nothing in it, then I can't afford it.
Right.
And what did that ask? What was that purse doing?
And I actually had underlined that statement in my book because I think it's so very powerful to do that, is to understand just because you can afford it or just because you can buy it doesn't mean that you can afford it.
Right.
You know, and George always says, I'd rather carry a paper bag with $5,000 in it than a Louis Vuitton bag with $100 in it.
Right.
And so I think those are great comments, Eugene. And it's so much in this book, man. There's so much in the book. Man, I tell people now, there's some folks on our show. I have a stack of books to get out to some folks. And you know who you are. You got your book coming. I got a stack of books. But tell people how they can get the book.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And I was still stuck on that point, but I know we got to move this along. And so yes, please everybody get a copy of the book. If you talk about buying black, then please go to eugenemitchell.com. EUGENEMITCHELL.com. And I'll if you purchase off the site there, I'll autograph it and sign it and send it to you. It is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all the mass distributors out there. But of course, we talk about making those folks rich. We got to cycle the dollar and bring it back. So if you send it to me off of the website here, I'll make sure to get a signed copy out to you tomorrow or as soon as I receive the order. So EugeneMitchell.com. That's there's so much, like I just said, in this that I'm trying to get across. That there's so much that I think we have been missing, and that's why I call it untold rules. Those with money haven't shown us the rules of the money game, and how they're playing the game. right? So we just see them somehow always ascending, moving forward, getting ahead. And this is what, I tried to pull the curtains back. I was in a unique position in this corporate position and watched for many years. Just man, that's how they're doing it. That's what we've been missing. And that's what I've written in the book here. Just tips, tools, and strategies that we've been missing. And a lot of it is mental. Mindset is about awareness, is about this financial literacy, and then, applying tools in ways that these other folks have been doing.
Hey, I just want to show the folks, man, I got the stack of books right here. I got a stack of books right here. They're coming to you. They're coming out to you. I need to get some more, because one of the things that just hit me, Eugene, is that we have a growing team. And I think we have recommended a lot of books in this industry over the years. We've recommended Patrick Kelly's Tax-Free Retirement, Miracle Retirement. We've recommended David McKnight's Power of Zero. We've recommended a lot of books over the years in this industry. And I think this is a must read for anyone who's coming in. And so I'm committing something now. I'm going to commit to those people who become a part of my team. You know who you are. You're already on the team, to get you a copy of this book. Now, the rest of y'all going to have to go ahead and buy your book, man. Buy your book from Eugene. But those people who have become a part of my team, we're going to talk about ways that you can get this book absolutely free. Well, it won't be free. I'm going to pay for it and get it to you, because I think it's so important for the work that we're doing. People, this is a mission. This is a mission. This is not about selling policies. This is not about a certain kind of policy. This is a mission about knowledge. And I tell people this, and we used to say this in church all the time. It's like, if you come to our church, you learn about the Lord, you get saved, and you go, and then you go somewhere else, that's fine. If we can teach you about some financial literacy, about some things that he's unpacking in this book, and you take that knowledge and you go somewhere else and you make a difference in the world, then that's great. And we love what you've done, the work that you've done. If you check your text message, man, I'd ask if you come back next week and finish up for us. Can you do that?
Absolutely, man. I'd be happy.
There it is, folks. He's committed. He's done it. So and in light of that, I'm going to order some more books. I'm going to text you tomorrow, let you know how many I need.
Sounds great.
I got more folks I want to give books to. And so Eugene's going to come back because we didn't finish. This is the third time we didn't finish, but what you've shared is so rich. And man, I'm just elated, man. I'm elated. Marlon, I got to hand it over to you, man, because I'm geeked tonight.
Yeah, you are feeling it, man. And again, Eugene, thank you, brother, because you definitely elevated the consciousness. I mean, the chat box is just bouncing. Tiffany Hill just ordered hers online, right. And again, that's what this is about. Each one teach one, each one reach one. You can see Tony's enthusiasm. Why? Because it's basically, sometimes you're out there by yourself, right? You're out there, you're like a lone ranger, but to be able to connect with another person. And that's what these are really doing. It's basically these huddles, right? We come together, and on Thursday night at 8:00, we're getting inspiration and information, and we're inspired, right? We're empowered to keep on keeping on, right? Because we live in a negative society. Right. I mean, Tony was talking about the news and, for, a lot of reasons, but, the negativity that is promoting. Right. I remember hearing something, if it bleeds, it reads. Right. So, I mean, so what we're doing, and that's why I ask everyone to, please, next week, come back. This is round 3. Eugene will be here. And he's going to bring it. This is it. All right. This is
yeah.
Match. I mean, it's over after this. The bell will ring. Okay. I encourage you to, have your family, your friends, get people to come. Right. It's free. What are you talking about? Right. But, sometimes we don't value things that are free. And, I would have to say, I love what Tony said. I really look at this as a movement. Right. I mean, that's really what we're talking about, is taking it to the next level. And the beautiful thing about it is each one of us has a responsibility. We have a responsibility. Again, it's not about just getting information. It's about action. So it's about applying what you're learning, the identity, right? I mean, I know for me, my kids and I, we're going to sit down, we're going to, write out like our vision, right? We're going to write out the things that we're grateful for, the things that make us unique. Okay. So I'm doing that tomorrow morning, right? Because of this conversation. You can never start, too late, right? It's starting now. And so I want to thank you, Eugene, for that, because I think, we can listen to good information, but unless we take action, and that's what you really are talking about with the other communities, really, for years, right? They've been doing this, and you're talking about legacy wealth, transferring wealth, right? We're all going to die. We're all going to die. I'm sorry. I mean, ain't nobody going to get out of this alive. Mm-hmm. So why not have it set up so that, man, you can leave your legacy, right? And, I meet some people, they say, well, I don't have any kids. That's okay. Well, what cause are you excited about? Right? I mean, if it's your school, if it's your church, if it's a ministry, whatever, if it's a nonprofit, why not give them? You can have that be your beneficiary and be a blessing, right, when you pass away. So to me, tonight's been great. I'm excited as well. Round 3, and I be respectful of time, and we got you coming back. You're committed online.
I tried to send the text, man. I was holding it back. But this is what I want our viewers to do, is I want you to order the book, because Eugene is volunteering. He's bringing his time here, taking time away from his family to spend this hour with us. Please order the book. Be a blessing to him. Be a blessing to yourself. Order one, give one, order 2.
That's right.
Give one away. Right? Because I'm going to give about 10 of them away. So order your book, order 2, give one away to somebody you care about. Now, I do want to make a plug here, is that he talked about, if you have a landlord in a Lexus, you have a problem. We do have, and it was confirmed today, Emmerich Peace, one of the top Black realtors in the country, for Keller Williams out of PG County. You may even know Emmerich from the Power Networking Conference, Eugene. He's going to come. He's going to be with us in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk about real estate. Nice. Because for many of you who've been gone through some of the classes, we talk about 4 pillars of intergenerational wealth, and that's proper management of your current assets, proper insurance and investments, business development and ownership, and real estate. Those are the 4 pillars. And so we're going to do everything we can to bring you the best information, the brightest mind, thought leaders. And so Eugene, I'm so grateful, man. And we're just looking forward to we're going to wrap it up next week, y'all. We're going to have to wrap it up next week, but it's been great. And so thank you so much.
Thank you both for your leadership. Thank you for hosting these. You guys have been amazing. I appreciate it.
I just want you to, just check this out. I mean, I always like looking at, what people are sharing. And Evelyn said, this is a long overdue conversation. It will take time to have it. And so that's why, you're here 3 times, right? You're our first guest, man. You're our first guest, 3. Okay.
Right.
LaShawn said, thank you, Eugene Mitchell, for the information and empowerment. Ruth said, thank you, Eugene, for sharing so much knowledge. Denise said she already got her book. Okay. She ain't playing. All right. Alex, what's the best way to get this information flowing among the movement of all looking for positive action today? And I would say, Alice, let people know. 8 o'clock Thursday night, right? Get your popcorn, get your water.
Hey, you know. Right.
And then Ruth said, thanks to Tony Jackson and Marlon Smith for being so awesome. You continue to bring in other heavyweights to help us also. I don't miss from hearing you on Thursday nights. Thank you so much. That means a lot. And so in closing, I just want to say our time is now. And it's so exciting. You can feel the energy, right? I mean, an hour flies by. See, when you're on purpose, when you're doing what you're called to do, you can hear Eugene, and Tony. They're just like, they're just having a good time. Why? Because they're on purpose. And that's the thing. Each one of us was born on purpose. And once you find out what your purpose is, life takes on new meaning. And so we're excited to be partnering with you. That's right. We're arm in arm. We're partnering with you to say, yo, let's do this thing. 2020, year of perfect vision. It's now time for us to link arms and let's do this thing. And so that's what this is all about. And again, if you have any feedback or any questions, you can send an email to info@therealmoneycoach.com. Info@therealmoneycoach.com, because we're in it together. And so on behalf of the Real Money Coach, we say thank you. Live with purpose because there's greatness within you. And remember, a vision without action is just a dream. A lot of action without a vision is merely a passing of time. But a vision with action can change the world. Stay blessed.